All right, everyone, welcome in and welcome back to Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports after an unexpected hiatus of just a week. I'm Nicole, as always, from Chattanooga, Tennessee, the United States, and joining me from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Gus Tomazeli. And Gus, it is great to be back with you here this week. We just had a combination of weather issues and personal medical issues that kind of precluded us from doing this last week.
Yeah, because last Thursday, the day was supposed to do our pod, was one of the worst rains I have ever seen in Americana. It felt like a really, really bad, uh, uh, almost a tropical. I don't say a tropical storm, but it was a really, really bad rain, like a lot of thunder and stuff. So, and also our jobs that keep us busy. Me with Rio Branco, you with channel WDF and the trials, and me with games. But we're here. Let's do it. I mean, of course,
Oh yeah, I
we
totally forgot about that. We were going to try to do it on Monday, but I was at work until 10 on the trial, and that ended on Tuesday. And then I started developing dental pain. So
yeah.
it was an adventure. I'm gonna be honest, it's been for just personally for me. This has been kind of a crazy month with as cold as it's been. I've had some other stuff happen, but hey, we are at the end of January, the first full month of 2025. And what that means is we have a Super Bowl matchup that's set. So we're kind of I have to approach it a little bit differently. I feel like to synthesize the last two rounds of playoff matches. Let's start with the AFC because I think that's the side that people are talking about a lot more. Because the Kansas City Chiefs, is that Thunder? Wow. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
here's some.
I was gonna say, now it's in Chattanooga. Here in Americana, weather, at least for now, is fine. I mean, it rained a lot during the afternoon, but right now it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's been cold, extremely cold all month too. So it's insane to actually hear thunder. I can't remember the last time I actually heard a thunderstorm. But um, yeah, hopefully, and it should be like anything severe. So hopefully we don't have. Could you imagine we get going and then it knocks me off? That would be, well, if when that happens, I could always show in via phone. But
Yeah,
um, let's hope that does not happen. But
definitely.
to kind
Let's
of
talk
get back
football.
on, yeah, let's talk football. No more thunder distractions. Because that definitely caught me off guard.
Uh,
But
AFC Championship.
we are
There,
talking about the AFC and the Thunder that is the Kansas City Chiefs because they're like Thanos from Avengers, or just inevitable at this point. They have the six stones, the Infinity Stones, and they just cannot be defeated. Um, Obviously, beat Houston last week, and then this week got Buffalo in the AFC title, and you know, whether they got bailed out or just made the key plays down the stretch, that is up for your interpretation. But the fact is, they won again over Buffalo to get back to their fifth Super Bowl in 6 years, their third straight Super Bowl. And now they are a game away from immortality, the ever elusive repeat. Gosh, there's a lot of controversy here because a lot of people think that the Kansas City Chiefs are solely where they are because of referee decisions. Do you think that is accurate, or do you think that's oversimplifying?
I think in sports in general, when a team starts being kind of supreme, starting to have a supremacy, uh, you ended up trying to find scapegoats. You train to ended up trying to find a legitimate kind of like some sort of mechanism, and refereeing decision ended up being that way. In soccer as well. Like for example, Palmeiras having like this successful run in the last 5 years. You always say, "Oh, it's the referees." They always take Palmeiras side. No, it's because Palmeiras have a really good coach and a really good roster, and they are deserving of their success. And the Kansas City Chiefs the same. Uh, I mean, can we talk about how Andy Reid is the best NFL head coach of all time? And I'll tell you why. I know we all say Bill Belichick was the GOAT, but he was the GOAT with only one franchise, which was the New England Patriots with one quarterback, Tom Brady. Andy Reid has success with Donovan McNabb, which wasn't, I don't even know if he made uh, uh, the Hall of Fame or was a very acclaimed uh, quarterback, but he had some sort of success with him in Philadelphia. The Eagles went to 3 straight NFC championships, only was successful once, and then lost in the Super Bowl to the Patriots. But what I want to say is Andy Reid run for me is more impressive than Patrick Mahomes because what he was able to do to revamp his career. Because after he left Philly, everybody thought, oh, he's done, he is not going to have success again. And he create himself, and he ended up having this dominant run with a division that is not completely like we all say that AFC today is better than the NFC. So it wasn't a weaker conference. It's just the Kansas City Chiefs make the AFC looks weak because how dominant they are. And of course, they had some bumps in the way. But I mean, they are, as you said, one game away from immortality because Chuck Noll Steelers, uh, Jimmy Johnson Cowboys, and Bill Belichick Patriots could not do a three-peat. Um, those three dominant teams, those three dynasty couldn't do what the Kansas City Chiefs are one game away to do it.
Right. Kind of want to pick apart some of those, talk about some of those things you mentioned. So you brought up obviously Andy Reid being the greatest coach of all time, and that certainly, right. When I hear that sentence, it's like, wow, that's a big statement. But honestly, he's won at a very high level for a very long time now. I know he didn't win a Super Bowl in Philadelphia, but as you mentioned, Jonathan McNabb was not a Hall of Fame quarterback. He didn't make the Hall of Fame. He doesn't deserve to really make the Hall of Fame. He was able to ride a year of Vic when he came back from prison from the dogfighting scandal. But ultimately, it didn't work out in Philly. Less so because of him, but more because I think the personnel kind of downtrended in the early 2010s for the Philadelphia Eagles. So then he goes to Kansas City. Has spent several years with Alex Smith. Doesn't do much, but then Patrick Mahomes elevates him. And yeah, you can say make the argument of like, well, Belichick was just boasted by Tom Brady. Reid was bolstered by Patrick Mahomes. And that's true because, both coaches have not won Super Bowls with any other quarterback. But I think Andy Reid has done a lot better, without Patrick Mahomes than Belichick did without Brady. And obviously, the other conversation we're starting to see a lot more of is the Mahomes versus the Brady. Now, the thing that's going to hurt Mahomes forever is Mahomes was 0-2 against Brady in the postseason, losing in the Super Bowl in 2021, losing in that AFC Championship. Now, I don't really blame Mahomes for either one of those losses because obviously you look at the 2018 AFC Championship at home against Arrowhead. He lost because Dee Ford jumped off sides in that overtime and gave Brady some free plays that led to the game-winning touchdown for the New England Patriots. And then in 2021 against Tampa, he had no line help. Like, he was running for his life the entire game. And that's why the Kansas City Chiefs got blown out by Tampa Bay that night because their offensive line just got completely worked. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs this year have not been an offensive juggernaut. And frankly, Mahomes, in my opinion, has not been great this year. He's kind of turned a little bit into what I used to dislike about Tom Brady. He's a check down guy now. You don't see him throwing bombs all the time like he used to when he had Tyreek Hill when he was young in his career. But he's playing a much more sustainable style of football at this point.
But I think we have to argue about that is that the receiving core that he has been having over the past 3 years is not the greatest. So, I mean, the opposite. How many plays Patrick Mahomes created that the receiving core couldn't sustain the play.
Right, and it goes to show that receiving core is not the most important piece. If you have to have the defense, you have to have the quarterback to really, and the coaching to really overcome that and to play well in situational football, to make the right reads, to make the right decision. I mean, look at Nico. Nico made the playoffs this year with the Vols despite having really not a great receiving core, and you can talk it up to talent because a quarterback can make things happen even if the receiving core isn't great. And for me, this will always be forever stay on Tyreek Hill, who left KC, try to go prove out on his own, and literally KC, all they've done is win Super Bowls ever since he left. So it just goes to show that even the best wide receivers will never match the importance of the best quarterbacks. It's not all about the quarterbacks. You also have to give a lot of credit too to Steve Spagnuolo. And Spagnuolo, I think you have to argue, is one of the best defensive coordinators I've ever seen, because what he has done with that Kansas City defense. Because even when the offense has been lackluster at times this year, that's the reason why they keep on winning, is because of that defense. And they made the key stops down the stretch against Buffalo. Now, we do have to talk about the 4th down and 1 with about 10 minutes left in that ball game. Because in my view, I think Josh Allen got the first down on that quarterback sneak. The fact it wasn't called a first down to me was ridiculous, and it single-handedly changed the outcome of this game. But refereeing decisions like that happen like that. And it feels like Kansas City gets the benefit of the doubt a lot on those. But who's to say that there's a conspiracy? Because that like a Buffalo Bills Super Bowl would get just as many views as Kansas City, right? Like Josh Allen, breaking the glass ceiling, or like Lamar Jackson. Like, imagine the storylines with Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen in the Super Bowl versus Kansas City going for a free-peat. Everyone's going to watch the Super Bowl regardless. I mean, guys, there were 57.7 million people who watched the Chiefs Bills on Sunday night. So people who I think run around and say the NFL is trying to rig certain outcomes, I think they're insane. Gus, you're muted.
I mean, Nicholas, you think about it. Really, do you think really the National Football League wants to rig a small market team to to create a dynasty or three-peat to alienate fans? Really, really? You know what team the NFL dies to have on, and they don't rig for them, and they also are very incompetent. We're definitely going to talk about a lot of incompetent decision this franchise did, which is the Dallas Cowboys. But really, do you think really the NFL rigged the Super Bowl and kept the Cowboys for 30 years away from the big game? Really?
Right. It's the same people who think the NFL is just rigging the Chiefs to win so they can get Taylor Swift on TV more.
Oh yeah, sure. Because Taylor Swift, because that's the NFL need. The NFL needs Taylor Swift popularity. Come on, the NFL is king, and it's not even close. I mean, I would understand if it was like Major League Baseball or even NBA, but the NFL definitely does not need Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I mean, neither one needs the other. Taylor Swift's the biggest pop artist. NFL's the biggest sporting league in the world. Like, neither one need each other. I mean, like, and like, additionally, too, at this point, the fact that that Swift and Kelsey have lasted for a year and a half, like, hey, you got to give them kudos. I guess there's something actually there, especially for how busy their lives are. But I'm not a relationship expert. We're talking sports here. But like,
Yeah.
people who think she's just there for ratings, that's insane.
That's the stupidest argument ever. I mean, that referees are not perfect. I mean, in Brazil, I know that for a fact that every other week, a team is complaining about refereeing decisions. And in the Premier League, in NBA, refereeing are not perfect. They're humans. Of course, now we have technology with VAR and instant review in the NFL, but still a human decision, and they're not going to be 100% accurate.
Yeah, I just mean to tease it out for later when we talk about the Vols basketball team. I'm probably going to complain a bit about officiating when we get to that segment, especially when it came to the Auburn game this past Saturday. But at the end of the day, the Vols had other chances to win that game, just like Buffalo had other chances to win this game. Buffalo, frankly, lost this game in the first half when they started off slow. Josh Allen came out, and he was just incredibly erratic in the first quarter. Like, he almost threw 2 or 3 picks in that first quarter. Now, Buffalo was able to kind of get themselves going, but when you're playing at Arrowhead, you cannot afford to fall behind. And the same thing kind of happened the week before to Baltimore. When I look at Baltimore and Buffalo, um, who do we think blew it more this year? Like, which one of these two teams is the least likely to get themselves back to this spot next year and beyond?
Uh, that's a great question. I mean, because how long this dynasty is gonna last? I think it's gonna be for more 3 or 4 years.
Right. Like, well, I mean, we're in the Kansas City dynasty, and like for Baltimore and Buffalo, but they are the two teams that can take them out. Now, Cincinnati, if they can figure out their defense, I think they can get back into it too. Because as long as they keep Burrow and Chase together, like that team will always have a chance in my view. And I think honestly, if Buffalo or Cincinnati, excuse me, had snuck into the playoffs, I think they could have made a run of as good as Burrow was playing. But as we've seen, Burrow has won at Arrowhead in the postseason. Um, so those three, like when you look at the quarterbacks that are there, like those are the three that can do it. To me, when I look at Baltimore and Buffalo, I think the time's ticking probably faster on Baltimore, just because when I look at durability, I just think Lamar Jackson has less durability than Josh Allen because he's just smaller. They run around a lot. He runs a lot. Now, granted, Lamar Jackson has become a fantastic thrower, but you have Derrick Henry behind him, and there's only so much time you're going to have with him. I just think Baltimore has to be more impatient. And that's why, to me, Baltimore needs to go out and get another big time receiver. Because we saw, the receivers let Lamar Jackson down in Buffalo last week, particularly Mark Andrews, who has had a fantastic career. But unfortunately for him, all he's ever going to be remembered for is dropping that 2-point conversion and fumbling in the fourth quarter, which completely cost Baltimore that game.
Yeah, I think for Buffalo, I think I'll go more in Buffalo. Sean McDermott, do you really, you know, can he coach the Bills to the Super Bowl? I thought so, but each year passed by, I saw the urinating tree video. For Bills fans, it feels like Groundhog Day. It feels like a repetition year after year after year, and and it must be excruciating for Bills fans because every time the team is competitive and is on the edge for a title, they always let down in the worst possible way. In the '90s was the making 4 Super Bowls, losing all four, and now is making to the AFC Championship and always losing to the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, I don't know any more any other. I don't know any like sports team or big franchise in a sports state like New York to have such a cursed sports team like the Buffalo Bills.
Like the only like modern comparison I can think of, you think of like the Toronto Maple Leafs, how they can't do anything in the Stanley Cup playoffs year after year after year, despite having like the most talented roster in the entire league. Or you think of like the Houston Rockets from a decade ago, the 2010s, when they had James Harden and they had a
Chris
really, really good
Paul.
roster, Chris Paul, and they had that epic 0 of 27 3-point shooting in Game 7 against the Golden State
Oh,
Warriors.
oh, they had in the oh my god, I want to say conference championship, but in the NBA is the
Yeah,
uh
yeah, the Western Conference Finals.
yes, they had a 3-1 lead of the Golden State Warriors and they never recovered from that.
Yeah, and that's honestly what the Buffalo Bills feel like they could be heading towards, is becoming that. And you're right. Like for Buffalo and Baltimore, both fan bases ought to be in a state of worry right now because like you have the best quarterbacks you have ever had that you probably will ever have. And because there's a Patrick Mahomes out there in Kansas City, you can't do anything. Now, once upon a time, the folks in Indianapolis with Peyton Manning saw the same thing with Tom Brady. It took them year after year. It took them 8 years to finally take out New England and get to the Super Bowl. So this is not unprecedented, and there's still 100% chances for Josh Allen and for Lamar Jackson. But man, this felt like a year that Kansas City wasn't invincible. And I don't know, like, do we think if the Ravens had beaten the Bills, how do we think last week would have gone? Do you think it would have been like similar? The Chiefs get out of there just with a tight win. That's what it feels like this would have been.
I mean, we can play hypotheticals as much as we want, and we can say, "Oh, what ifs?" But at the end of the day, the Chiefs again is back to the Super Bowl. Uh, I feel like this year was better, at least from last year. I think last year was the biggest opportunity to defeat Kansas City because they were readjusting, and they did not have a good receiving core. But this year, they came ready. I think Mahomes, it feels like one of those soccer players who's really dribbling. When I'm watching Mahomes, kind of rushing touchdowns, it reminds me a lot of Neymar, Ronaldinho. The ability to be fast with the ball and kind of dribbling the opponents.
Right. I mean, he's in full control. He knows exactly the offense inside and out. He knows exactly the limitation of what he's working with. And that's why he's one of the greatest, if not perhaps the greatest quarterback we've ever seen. And there's plenty of time to debate that down the road. But as it stands right now, there's a reason why he's been to 5 out of 6. And as much as people hate it, because a lot of people hate Kansas City. A lot of my friends are like, I'm not excited for the Super Bowl. I can't stand Kansas City. They did sometimes you just gotta appreciate greatness. Like I grew up with the New England Patriots, and now we got Kansas City. Dynasties happen for a reason.
I
Because
mean, we grew up with Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide football team.
yeah, and it didn't make me love college football any less. And that was literally my arch rival. So, if I could survive watching Florida, Alabama, and Georgia win national titles, I'm going to be just fine watching Kansas City in the Super Bowl year after year. So, congratulations to them. I also feel like we did not mention Houston at all. Yeah, hey, good playoff run, I guess, for Houston. But, and they didn't play bad, and they had their chances in the semifinals or in the divisional round. But, still obviously young team. They still, I guess, have some growing to do before they're a legit contender. But, hey, good sign that they are 2 of 2 for in division titles under CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I think Houston, of course, knew they were the underdogs. Knew they maybe were again a year back from being really a contender, and I feel like they at least they did not blew it uh, like with KC when Deshaun Watson was a quarterback. If it was like 2019.
Right. As long, yeah. I mean, CJ Stroud still only was in his second year, so they've got a lot of time, I
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
to really grow into it.
yeah, and we all expected only a disaster would have kept the Kansas City Chiefs away from the Super Bowl. I mean, they had a
Right.
terrific regular season, but I mean, the Bills are going to be eternally known for a team that can defeat Kansas City in the regular season when it doesn't matter, but when KC playoff mode goes on, Buffalo really is. uh, I mean, it's the kryptonite of Buffalo Bills.
Absolutely. And I want to shout out those who are watching us. We've got Marcial De Sena.
Say good broadcast to us, my grandma Amelia, and of course the biggest Philadelphia Eagles fan in Brazil, Rafael Della Vedove. So let's talk about his Philadelphia Eagles since
Yep,
he's
the
watching. He, of
Eagles.
course, yeah, and Rafa, if you want to put your inputs, you can send it to me. I'll translate. But let's talk about. I didn't thought the Philadelphia Eagles would make the Super Bowl after the dramatic regular season, the drama with Nick Sirianni. But I mean, when you have Saquon Barkley, in the running game, it makes a difference.
I think the question to ask when watching this, are running backs back to being important in the NFL? Because we saw what Christian McCaffrey, when healthy, what he has done with San Francisco. We're seeing what Saquon Barkley and how he has enhanced Philadelphia. I think there is something to be said that the running back position is not dead. And I think for a long time, people kind of looked at running backs and maybe thought, oh, okay, the importance of the position is completely gone. But when you have a running back that's as good as Saquon, it makes a difference because Jalen Hurts has not really played great in these playoffs. But when you have a guy like Saquon, it doesn't matter. And the Philadelphia Eagles are truly bringing it back old school with the physicality. Hurts is obviously, he has Brown, he has Devontae Smith, can hit some shots with them. But, man, this is a ground pound team, and that defense is very opportunistic, a lot of turnovers. Of course, we look at the NFC title game against the Washington Commanders, who, before we really get into this, just shout out to Washington. I mean, I'm not really going to have much bad to say about them at all. What a season. What a run.
I mean, I bet there was no Commanders fan at the beginning of the season who's like, "Oh, we're gonna make the conference championship." None. They'll be like, "Okay, if we make the wild card, is good. If we make the divisional round, great." I mean, making the but Rafael Della Vedova has a great point. Offensive line is more important than running backs.
Right, and like that's the crazy thing about Philadelphia. They lost Jason Kelsey after last year, their longtime center, and they didn't miss a beat at all. And that's what's incredible about what the Eagles have done. And because I've heard Jason Kelsey himself talk about this, the Eagles' offensive line is as tight of a unit as you will find in the entire league. And you pair them with a guy like Saquon, you wonder if Jason Kelsey maybe wonders, hey, maybe I should have stuck in for an extra year. So I could have blocked for Saquon Barkley, and he would have gotten to play his brother in the Super Bowl. I wonder who he's rooting for because I know he's not playing anymore. Is he rooting for his brother next week, or is he rooting for his old teammates in Philly? I feel like he's probably rooting for Philly for revenge for 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, he definitely are rooting for his colleagues because he's gonna take part of his championship even though he's not playing anymore. But he's like, hey, I was part of this team, I was part of this organization, you know. But yeah, but I mean, he knows what his body was capable for. Of course, when you stop playing, you always have that feeling, maybe I should have stick around. But he knows what his limit was. But I mean, I think Philadelphia as an entire roster, as a like a consider all units, special teams, defense, and offense, is better than Kansas City Chiefs. But the question is, quarterback and head coaching, who are better? And of course,
It's Kansas
and
City.
Kansas City. So which one is going to make more difference? The roster as a whole, the head coaching, or quarterback?
Well, so we've seen this. It has to be an overwhelming difference because I would argue the 2021 Super Bowl between the Bucks and the Chiefs was a situation where, in my opinion, the Chiefs had the better quarterback because Mahomes at that point was better than Brady,
Yeah,
and I would argue that Reed was better than Arians.
yeah.
But the Bucks overall had a much better roster, particularly when it came to their front seven versus the Chiefs' offensive line. That it made a huge difference, and for the Eagles, that might make the difference here, especially if they can get turnovers. Because the big difference in the Eagles-Commanders game was the 4 turnovers by Washington, and all of them were fumbles. Like Jaden Daniels, I thought played a spectacular game last Sunday, and he kept on being let down by Austin Eckler and the rest of his teammates who just could not hold on to the ball. Because remember, the week before in Detroit, they were flawless, no turnovers, they played lights out. And if they had, taken that to Philly, we could have had a different game, at least a much closer game. But clearly, Washington was just not there yet against Philadelphia. And it's kind of interesting. The team that really took Philly to the wire was the Rams, which really doesn't surprise me because I picked the Rams to beat Philadelphia in the divisional round, and it almost happened. And honestly, the snow saved the Philadelphia. I think honestly, if it doesn't snow in the Rams Eagles game, the Rams would have won that game because Jalen Hurts did not play well in that game. Stafford was dealing until it started to snow. And the Rams just could not adjust to playing in snow, being a team from Los Angeles. And, of course, they were dealing with the wildfires and everything else. it kind of compounded against them there. So the Eagles, I think, have gotten some help from Mother Nature against the Rams, and then they just obviously they completely outplayed Washington. So at least that's the way I see the way the Eagles' run has gone down.
Yeah, I think definitely the Eagles have more juice and have more. There we call here blood in their eyes. They're with more blood in their eyes in terms of you know this like Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, this entire roster. It's like it's our chance because we blew it once and we came so close to it. So we're back again, and and Philly hasn't been in this role before because you know they lost to Brady. Uh, so when they faced the second time, they won it. So that's kind of refreshing, I'll say.
Absolutely. Now, I think the team I really want to focus on here for a minute, since we didn't really get to talk about them last week, what happened to the Detroit Lions? I mean, this is probably the single worst result of the postseason. Um, they had all that momentum, number one seed, 15-1, night game at home in front of a sold out electric crowd, and they pooped their pants on live television. Jared Goff Jared Goff, we saw why the Rams were willing to part with him.
Yeah, Sean McVay knew that he has a ceiling. He has a ceiling. He has a ceiling that when it comes down to it, when you need it the most to make a difference, he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, literally getting outdueled at home by a rookie. And granted, I think Jane Daniels might be the best rookie quarterback we've ever seen. It's either him or Andrew Luck are the best rookie quarterbacks we've ever seen. But still, he's a rookie. He shouldn't be able to go on the road in your house and outduel you as a veteran. And that's exactly what happened for Jared Goff. I mean, he was just terrible. Completely wasted. Great coaching, great weapons. And then the Lions defense, yeah, clearly they were a mashing, they had a lot of injuries. So I can't be as hard on them, but still like guys, you gotta like do something. I mean, you're NFL players. This is your playoff lives, and they just could not get the job done. And now for the Lions, they lost both of their coordinators. Of course, Aaron Glenn going to the Jets. We have Ben Johnson going to Chicago. I, it's going to be an interesting future here for Dan Campbell because there's an argument to be made that his success is primarily due to those coordinators. Has Dan Campbell peaked at Detroit? Because you just have to wonder, especially if they're going to stick with Jared Goff.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a really hard off season for Detroit because now because now the fans are not like, oh my god, we're good, finally. They're not. They're like, okay, we're good, but we need to make this being good into something. I mean, we need to at least make the Super Bowl. I mean, of course, we sucked. We never made the postseason, but now we made the postseason. We made to the NFC Championship. We made it again to the playoffs, being the number one seed. But is that our ceiling? That's the big question. Is that the Lions' ceiling?
Yeah, and honestly, I'm starting to think it might be. And now, as long as they have Goff, can you move on to a Hendon Hooker in the next year or two and see if he can't elevate you? And what's concerning to me about that is they brought in Teddy Bridgewater for this playoff game and had him be the backup quarterback, and Hendon Hooker was the practice squad quarterback for this game, which is concerning to me because if Hendon Hooker were developing, which I have every belief that he has that capability of doing so, um, he clearly wasn't given that opportunity. Which obviously, we want to see him get a chance because we love Hendon Hooker, but Detroit doesn't seem to believe in him, and that concerns me.
Yeah, I think not. But now Ben Johnson is gone, so a new OC might have a fresh set of eyes into the quarterback position. So hopefully he'll get more playing time and more trust because he's definitely capable of being a good quarterback. We all saw in Knoxville.
Absolutely, yeah. When forever a legend here in Knoxville. Okay, so just some quick initial Super Bowl thoughts. I don't want to pick anything because I want
Yeah,
to save
let's save
that for
this.
next week.
Yeah, let's save that for next week.
Yeah, just one quick thought. What do you think? What's the first thing you're thinking about when you think of Eagles Chiefs for the second time in 3 years?
I think it's gonna be a battle between, as I said, uh, good roster versus a special roster versus a special coach quarterback. You know, which kind uh, which uh, piece is going to be more important? That's my question. I
Mhm.
think, and I'm curious to see if Nick Sirianni, because if Nick Sirianni wins the Super Bowl, then it's a whole other conversation about his drama, his personality. Then he's a winning personality. If he wins, all that you know, uh, all that distrust is gone.
And for me, what I will say I'm thinking about here is all the people complaining about this matchup, saying like, "Oh, I don't want to watch this. Like, why do I have to watch Eagles Chiefs again? This is not the matchup that I wanted." You know what they're going to be doing next Sunday evening. We all know what you're going to be doing next Sunday. You're going to be in front of that TV at 6:30 p.m. watching
Eight
Eagles Chiefs. Or
8:30 Brazil time.
yeah, you're going to be sitting in front of the TV watching Eagles Chiefs because the NFL runs America. So
Allah. What channel is going to be broadcast in America this year?
Fox, it's going to be Fox. So Tom Brady will get to call the Super Bowl after playing in it like what 10 times or something, like nine.
Yeah.
So
I, I I bet there's going to be the traditional president interview at Fox. I would imagine.
oh yeah, of course with the brand. This is our first episode I think since President Trump was reinaugurated.
Yeah, that's true.
Because this is now the second president that this podcast has existed under.
Yeah, that I mean, I guess yeah, that's the second because we started with no, we started with Biden, right?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
we started like
Biden.
a couple of months into his term.
Yeah,
Yeah, so President Trump now is in office, and certainly some interesting things going on there. Um,
yeah,
but
which is also affecting Brazil too. By the way, there's a lot of airplanes, coming in with with Brazilians that didn't follow immigration law.
yeah, that's a controversy. Of course, I thought when you started talking about airplanes, I was thinking my thought went to something else because obviously of what happened
Oh yeah,
last night in DC. So, and obviously our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone who was
yeah,
affected by that tragedy. This U.S. figure skating team unfortunately got caught up in that, and the Russian figure skater team as well. A lot of future Olympians we lost in that, so that's just an awful tragedy. And hopefully steps are taken to prevent something like that from happening again. But back to the NFL here because we got to talk about some of these hires. And you alluded to it earlier, Gus. The Dallas Cowboys. What are the Dallas Cowboys doing? Why are they promoting Brian Schottenheimer, the OC of an offense that took steps back this year, to head coach?
I mean, it's just frustrating to see. I feel like the Cowboys are Ferrari driven by one of those crazy cars kind of thing, one of those what is the name when like not demolition cars, kind of the when mad like bumpy cars, like it's like a
Or they,
Ferrari.
I'm about to say they're clown cars.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Ferrari been driven by a clown car driver. I mean, what I want to say is that how can one of the most valuable franchises in the world has been running so poorly? Not like we cannot compare to Manchester United, but Manchester United has been kind of been running poorly for the last 12 years. The Cowboys is like that for almost 30 years. 30 years.
I
Like
mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, there's a lot of coaches that would crawl over glass, run through fire to be the head coach of that brand. I mean, that is literally the most coveted job in the NFL. And
oh
you're telling me,
look at Rafa Eagles fans say.
yeah, Jerry
That's
Jones is the greatest thing that's ever happened. I mean, literally, the Cowboys had the longest streak of not making the NFC Championship game in the entire league conference.
it's
Every other
mind
team in the
blowing.
conference have made it at least once.
It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing to because like we cannot argue like a we call poor franchises like for example the Cincinnati Bengals,
The
Jacksonville
poverty
Jags,
franchise.
the poverty franchise. We can argue, oh my God, they make they don't make their conference championship consistency, but the Dallas Cowboys is worth billions. It's always on the top on the Forbes list, but on the football field, they're not on the top. They're in the opposite. I mean, what kind of a sports team with such prestige and value as the Dallas Cowboys dump their hiring of their next head coach on a Friday night? On a Friday night.
A franchise that knows they made the wrong decision. And what would be scary is what if they had gone after legit candidates? I'm not necessarily talking about Deion Sanders. What if they went after actual candidates and they all said no because we don't want to work with Jerry Jones? I think Jerry Jones's name is just toxic at this point. Like,
Yeah.
and they have to really ask themselves, do you have to move on?
I mean, Cowboy fans are always going to be grateful for what he did back in the late 80s, uh, buying a franchising that was, on the verge of collapsing, that was literally on the bottom, 1 and 15, and revamping and finding Jimmy Johnson, have the great run, and then running Jimmy Johnson out of the building, but bringing Barry Switzer and getting another Super Bowl. But that was then. That was in the mid '90s. A lot of things in the mid '90s doesn't exist anymore. Doesn't make sense anymore. And I feel like Jerry Jones running the Cowboys are the same thing. It's one of those things in the '90s that made a lot of sense, but it doesn't anymore. I mean, I feel really bad for Cowboy fans because they're passionate. They love their team. And we all started to question it. How long the Dallas Cowboys are going to be America's team? Because you can be really popular for a period of time, but when you're having such a dysfunctional and unsuccessful runs for so many years, I mean, the football world in the United States of America starts to driven away from you.
Yeah, like I think it's starting to become very uncool to be a Dallas Cowboys fan. Like there's less and less people that I hear from that care about the Dallas Cowboys because of how irrelevant they have become. And that's not going to change until the owner changes.
and
Or at
and you
least
can and you can see every time. You can watch every start like every division picks every time a big media pundit is in sports talk about the Cowboys in the preseason, the before the start is a little bit of hope because the NFL media, even the NFL itself, wants the Dallas Cowboys to be good, wants the Dallas Cowboys to be relevant because because it get ratings, they get eyeballs, they get money. So I feel like a lot of times media pundits in the NFL media kind of have a little bit like, please Dallas Cowboys be good, and time and time and time and time and time again.
yeah, like the Skip Baylesses and the Stephen A. Smiths of the world desperately. Now,
Yeah.
okay, let me ask you this. So I saw a poll the other day, a potential Democratic nomination 2028, and on that poll, Stephen A. Smith had 2% for the 2028 presidency. Um, what's the higher chance? Stephen A. Smith is the Democratic nominee for president in 2028, or the Dallas Cowboys make an NFC Championship game before 2028.
Do you know what's scary? Both both have the same chances, which is scary. Because if you would have asked that 10 years ago, it'd be like, "Are you crazy?" But now, I don't know. I don't know because not only the head coaching position, but I mean, I don't freaking understand why Jerry Jones gave a second contract to Dak Prescott. I'm not saying he's bad. He's an average quarterback, but he should be going to the the kind of the group of Teddy Bridgewater, James Winston, the kind of quarterback that's like, okay, he's good, but he's gonna be our backup. That's that's Dak Prescott's group, and okay, the first contract maybe wasn't good, so let's give it another one. So, what is the definition of insanity?
Doing the same thing over and over and over again. Now, I
And
hope CD
expecting
Lamb gets out of there. I
and
just want CD
expecting
Lamb.
and expecting the same results, which
Yeah.
that's what happens to the Cowboys.
Yeah, I want CD Lamb to get out of there. I want him to go to an actual franchise. That would be amazing because he's like by far him and Micah Parsons need to get out of there. They deserve better. And also, you have a franchise too that's out here re-signing Ezekiel Elliott before the season to hope they can get back to the glory days. Like, just it doesn't make any sense. Does not make any sense whatsoever. The Dallas Lowboys. That's that's what they are now. A franchise I think that made a good hire is the Las Vegas Raiders. They went out and got Pete Carroll, who I didn't see this coming, but that is actually legit. I think a pretty good hire. Now, I think Pete Carroll's best days are probably behind them, but he at the very minimum could at least stabilize that franchise for a couple of years.
I mean, I want to say that, like, we all talk about quarterback head coaching divorce, and he won the divorce against Russell Wilson. He took
For
Geno Smith to the playoffs. I don't say he was in the top like he was 10 years ago, but he has, I think, some years good behind, is still ahead of him. I think the Las Vegas Raiders needed an experienced veteran coach because they are they have potential, but they needed adults in a room because remember when he took over Seattle, Seattle was a little bit of a, I'm not saying as big of a mess as the Raiders, but he needed to revamp the franchise, and he did that. So I think the Raiders made really good hire because when you are in troubling waters, you need a veteran captain, and that's what the Raiders got it.
Yeah, and you look at the last couple of years of the Raiders, right? It all goes back to when they hired John Gruden. Then he gets fired mid-season for like all the
J- Uh, Dan,
controversial.
the Dan Snyder emails.
Yeah, the Dan Snyder emails, and then they bring in Josh McDaniel, and you have their whole Henry Rugg situation. Josh McDaniels gets ran out of town. They keep Antonio Pierce, a motivational speaker, who wasn't fit to be an NFL head coach, and it's just been a clown show
Yeah,
in Vegas.
yeah, and you talk about and I want to, and we mentioned it's so funny. Like, I know we already talk about the Commanders. What I want to bring back because I mean, how refreshing for Commander fans to make the NFC Championship after not the team not being owned by Dan Snyder.
Yeah, and apparently there's an article that came out that said that Dan Snyder absolutely hated watching Washington make the NFC Championship game without him
Of
because it just
course.
proves how terrible he is.
Oh, how egocentric he is! Like,
Yeah,
such an egocentric move. Like, oh, since I'm not the owner, I want them to do best. So he didn't like the team. He wanted to be a NFL owner for his ego.
right. And he didn't know how to do that well.
Oh,
So
definitely not. Oh God,
yeah,
no.
yeah. So for sure. Also, your Jets, Jets. They've gone with Aaron Glenn at the Lions. Is this coach going to be any different for
I
the
don't
Jets?
know. I mean, another DC being a head coach at the Jets. I don't know. It felt like a little bit of a reach. I don't know. Uh, but the big question is is Aaron Rodgers' experiment a failure?
Yes.
And yes. So, do you think he's gonna be the quarterback for the Jets for how long? Like, because at some point it's just gonna be like, are we gonna stuck with a has-been quarterback, or we gonna move off him, and look for the future?
Yeah, and honestly, like, I don't blame the Jets for going to him 2 years ago because
No.
up until the fourth play of his tenure, it felt like a great idea. But then when he tore his ACL, I mean, that pretty much killed the entire thing. Which
Oh
I guess
yeah.
was the risk you ran with getting an old quarterback.
No, definitely.
Yeah, and I still think Salov was perhaps unfairly fired because I do think he's still a really, really good coach, and he's going to get another shot somewhere. I truly believe that. It's just now it's been what? It's been 15 years since the Jets have made the playoffs, which is insanity. Or it's been 13. 2011, so it's been 13 years since they have made the postseason. And I believe that's the longest drought of any team, which is just it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. I mean, talk about, uh, and again, that's another franchise the NFL wanted to be good because the Jets in the AFC is probably one of the biggest brands, and being in a market as New York City.
Mhm.
But Woody Johnson, gets NFL tips from his son, which trusts Madden ratings. It tells something about the franchise.
See, I've never heard that, but that's insane. Like,
I think we mentioned in this podcast, right?
probably. I mean, we've had 165 episodes. So if you have mentioned it, um, hold on, I gotta look this up. They use matting ratings. That
Yeah, yeah,
is
uh,
hysterical.
yeah. So Jets owner Woody Johnson uh, reportedly nixed Jerry Judy trade due to low Madden rating.
Yeah, I think I totally missed this when this happened. That's
Yeah, Woody Johnson reportedly rely on Madden NFL video game ratings to evaluate players.
see.
So forget about scouting, forget about personnel. Let's trust EA.
Well, and he does realize you can adjust players' ratings. Like if college football 25 had existed 6 years ago, I could have gone in there and made Jared Garantano a 99 overall. Although should have been like a 70.
You're being generous.
And being very generous. Oh boy! Shout out Jared Garantano,
Yeah.
who's making his amends with the Tennessee fan base. I really shouldn't make fun of him anymore, but
I mean, hopefully he'll be in our podcast. Wink,
one
wink.
day,
Yeah, wink, wink, Mister Jason Wire. I mean, I want to interview him.
yeah. Well, me taking pot shots at him doesn't help.
Yeah,
Yeah, but the other Lions coordinator that I mentioned, he goes to the Bears, Ben Johnson. And to me, I think this has the potential to be the best hire of the cycle if Ben Johnson can mesh with Caleb Williams. Because Caleb Williams showed potential this year. He just had adult as a coach in Matt Eberflus, as we saw time and time again. Especially, I will never forget. I think the most memorable moment of this entire season was the disaster on Thanksgiving. The
that
Bears.
was. I mean, I mean, he went to the Cowboys as well, Matt Eberflus, didn't he?
Yeah, he's the DC.
Oh my God.
I mean, he was a good DC though, so like he's not going to be in charge of anything beside calling defense. So he's a good DC. Just never let that man run a football team again, because that dude can't manage a game. I mean, letting 30 seconds fall off for no reason. One of the craziest endings I've ever seen. But Caleb Williams has a lot of potential. They got to fix the offensive line in Chicago, but yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there for Ben Johnson. Additionally, the Jaguars have hired a coach And the Jaguar, a lot of attention on the Cowboys with how incompetent they are. What are the Jaguars doing? They're out here. They fired their GM 2 weeks after the season, and they've gone and kind of screwed over NFL rules. They didn't request a interview the Bucks OC. They went and got him, and then the Bucks OC goes on his introductory press conference and just looks like a clown. Did you hear the way he said Duval?
No.
He was just like Duval or something like that. Like,
Oh my.
yeah, just a complete clown show in Jacksonville. Like the Jacksonville and Tennessee are fighting for who? Well, Jackson, Tennessee, and Indianapolis are fighting for who is the worst ran franchise in the AFC South. Because all three are making moves that are just perplexing their fan bases this offseason. Like, if you were going to fire your GM, if you were going to fire your head coach, why did you wait weeks into this offseason to do it? It's like same for the Cowboys. Like, make a move. Like, I was mad when the Titans fired Carthon 2 days into the offseason. Like, do that immediately. Get into the hiring cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's and the big question for Jacksonville is are they gonna make Trevor Lawrence work?
Well, there was some, people saying that they should trade away Trevor Lawrence. But like, I don't know. I think that's like, who would they go to at that point, Because you have some young talent, like Brian Thomas is a great rookie receiver. Um, but to me, it's clear that Trevor Lawrence, unfortunately, I don't think it's all his fault. I think having Urban Meyer as a rookie really damaged him a lot, and he hasn't quite recovered from that.
Yeah, because it was so funny that we like. Do you remember that Jacksonville was wild that year? Do you remember who was the tight end in the preseason that year?
Yeah, Tim Tebow.
Like that was wild.
God, and then him, like after the Thursday night game in Cincinnati, going to Columbus instead of going home with the team to go hang out with younger women
Yeah,
at
and
the bar.
and letting those women sit on their lap.
Yeah, which hey, outside of him being married, which that's very, very bad. The infidelity part of it, like whatever, no problem with that. But like, just was such a poor leader in the
Yeah.
NFL. And it makes you wonder how he competently ran college football teams to national titles at Florida and Ohio State. Um, so, yeah, that was all nuts. But my Titans do have a GM, finally, kinda. The Titans have hired Mike Borgonzi from the Kansas City Chiefs. He was their assistant GM. But things are kind of weird because remember how, I ranted a few weeks ago about how Amy Adams Strunk really has meddled with what the GM role is in Nashville in terms of like who's actually in charge, because you had this whole thing between him and the director of football operations and Chad Brinker and who has the final say. Well, things are still not really clear. And at the introductory press conference, she was not there. She was nowhere to be found. She sent a representative to speak on her behalf. I mean, you are the owner of the franchise. The GM is the most important decision that you make as the owner. You can let the GM make every other football decision if you want as the owner, but you have to determine who the GM is, who is going to make football decisions. And you can't be bothered to show up for that press conference to answer questions. She hasn't answered questions from the media in Nashville in years at this point, as a new stadium is being built with billions and billions of dollars of Tennessean taxpayer money on top of a terrible football product. So, not to rehash another rant against the Titans, but I'm just tired of having an owner. At least Jerry Jones with the Dallas shows up and will talk to the media. Now, granted, it makes no sense most of the time, but at least he'll say something. I respect that a lot more than what I'm seeing with the Titans.
Oh yeah, I feel sad for you, Nick, because the Titans 3 years ago had a lot of potential, but unfortunately, poor ownership. And a kind of like an absent ownership, which is what is worse, poor or absent ownership? Because the Titans felt absent ownership.
Right. And like if there's multiple people making final decisions, right? That there's like a brain trust, then that gives me pause because like that means you're going to be indecisive. Like who's going to make the final decision on the number 1 draft pick is the
Yeah,
question, you know?
and
Because I
there's a
mean
vital question moving forward.
that is your number 1 priority right now, figuring out what you do with that. Are you are you sure you want to take one of these 2 quarterbacks? Because I'm not. I'm very pro Travis Hunter or trade back is what I really want. But I have a feeling with a new GM, they're gonna want to take a new quarterback. So, and I don't blame them because Will Levis is he's a bust. So, in any case, we'll see what the Titans do this off season. Um, yeah, even though this was 10 days ago, we didn't get a chance to talk about it. So we'll just kind of revert back to, for the last time in this season, college football, because the Ohio State Buckeyes, after an embarrassing end to their regular season against Michigan, went on a tear in the playoffs and finalized it with a 34-23 win over the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Gus, I gotta give them a fair play here. I mean, they were the most talented roster, and they just completely showed why in
It's
the postseason.
it's what this modern college football world with NIL and collectives. So what now we can finally say is the championship that legal money can buy, which is fair.
Right, and it's really interesting. Like, when we look at this as a whole, right, and obviously when we look at the game, I mean, Ohio State was just a better team. Now Notre Dame put up a valiant effort in that second half trying to come back, but Ohio State was just better. I mean, they were just better in most facets of the game. Marcus Freeman, nothing to be ashamed of. I thought he had an amazing playoff run. Notre Dame is getting to a point where maybe they can also start competing for those, but they just weren't quite there yet. But still, fantastic season, and they've proven that they are back among college football's elites. But when I look at college football as a whole, right? Because the season is just so long now. Especially if you're going to go all the way to the national title game. Josh Pate, when I look at him, he's like, college football shouldn't be about national championship or bust. It shouldn't ever be about that, And there's so much when it comes to college football about rivalries and winning conferences.
We
When I
need
look at
both.
Ohio State, yeah, but like when I look at Ohio State, they didn't win their rivalry game. They didn't win their conference, but yet they went on a tear in the playoffs and won the Natty. Um, should that be more important? Should that be the end all be all? Because you look at the ratings, for example, the title game ratings had about 30 million people, and actually, no, like it was like 20 something million for this game. Not a high number, especially when you compare it to the NFL playoff games. And I know I saw a lot of talk about a week ago after the game saying that people just didn't really seem to care about it. They didn't hear a lot of buzz. Now, it was the night of the inauguration, so that was one reason you didn't hear a lot about the Ohio State Notre Dame game. It's just because it kind of got overshadowed by the inauguration. But at the same time, that season is so long that if you're not in one of those two fan bases, it's just hard, I think, for them to care. And this national title game isn't a cultural event like the Super Bowl. And it's never going to become a cultural event like the Super Bowl if you hold it on Monday night. They've got to find a way to get this thing on a Saturday. Like, work out a deal with the NFL. I heard Josh Pate, he proposed this. They need to figure out a way to get this thing on a Saturday. Because, like, that's the only way it would become a cultural thing. Like, Saturdays in the fall is a cultural thing because everyone's sitting down watching every single game, especially in the South. The national title game just isn't that, and I don't know how you make it that.
Also, I, you know, one thing I wish the college football keeps it permanent is to have the semi the at least okay, let's say quarterfinals, all of them at the 31st. It's more magical to have come to the instead of the January 1st. I think, for example, we all remember that midnight, missed field goal. I feel like it's more special. I think the NFL should make December 31st the date for the quarterfinals.
And honestly, maybe they need to find a way to. Maybe they should move up the playoff rounds. Like, why do we need a full week? And granted, this would step over Navy Army, but if we're gonna have conference titles the first week of December, why not go ahead and just do the first round that very next week, the second weekend of December? Do quarterfinals this that weekend before Christmas. Then you can have semifinals on New Year's and the national championship game a few days after.
I agree.
I
Because
think that's a lot better.
it's a lot better. It felt longer. It took out all the kind of glamorous. Because if you do that, then you keep the semifinals on the 31st. You keep the first Monday, the first Monday of the new year. I think just move 1 week up and make the Navy Army game a conference championship. Oh, but what happens if Army or Navy make the conference championship? We know that's a very long stretch. So if that happens, then you move, then move on. You know,
Yeah, like unfortunately, like in this particular situation, like Army Navy's just why can't Army and Navy play on Thanksgiving weekend?
yeah.
Like, look, then that's a very special game. Like, heck, you could make that game like be a standalone game on Black Friday or something.
Oh yeah.
Like, there's nothing stopping us from keeping that game special, but it doesn't need to have a full buffer week at the end of the season. Um, so yeah, I think that's something they really need to think about because the momentum just did not keep up, and I think it tainted the playoffs to an extent. Because obviously, I think overall, there's this playoff has a lot of potential. I had fun watching these playoffs, notwithstanding my trip to Columbus, Ohio. Um,
Oh, but Nick,
yeah.
I know it was a painful game, but I mean, I'm still proud of this Tennessee football
Oh,
team.
absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely. I was just saying, it wasn't fun getting blown out, but
but but at least you are there. Like think
yeah,
about it. Like literally this week completed 4 years of Josh Heupel being hired. If we would have come back 4 years ago when we did a Facebook Live at WHK and would have said, "Oh, we are in the college football playoffs and we lost to Ohio State," you would be like, "Oh my God, that was amazing."
yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right about that. And I think seeing some of the news about recruiting today, like one of our recruits for this year's class got upgraded to a 5-star for next year, so that's a pretty big development there. And of course, it's just I really like what we're doing as a program. So um, you're really right about that. And I do think we got some classics in the quarterfinals and semifinals, like that Orange Bowl. The Orange and Cotton Bowls were awesome in those semifinals, especially. The Sugar Bowl was a great game. The Peach Bowl, Texas Arizona State. I think the Peach Bowl more than any other game shows how special these playoffs could ultimately eventually be, with the possibility of upsets. And I just think we need a better seating format. No, the double buy or the buys for like Boise State made no sense, but like we've litigated that. But I guess overall, what now that the college football season is actually over, what will we remember from this first year of having the 12-team playoff from start to finish?
I think it's the biggest comeback from a regular season team to a playoff team ever in college football. Because think about it. Of course, in the past, that wouldn't have happened if, for example, 5 years ago, remember Georgia lost in the conference championship and was left out not long ago. So this new format allows you to have a really bad loss and still come back and win it all.
Absolutely. And I think the thing I'll take away from this year is the regular season was the most entertaining I've ever seen. And the people who say that the playoffs make the regular season pointless are insane
Oh,
because, like, you still only have 12 games to play in the regular season. You don't have room for error.
and talk about the last decision. How we still got controversy between SMU, Alabama, and South Carolina.
Yeah. Um. So
So talk about regular season doesn't matter. Come on, like the committee literally left out a powerhouse uh, and put in a team that is coming back from a death penalty.
yeah, and also too, I think the other storyline that'll be worth monitoring in the years to come is the SEC truly no longer the elite conference of college football?
I won't say that. I just say they're not on the mountain. Just now they're sharing the top. The Big Ten, I think, still needs to have a more consistent run, like the SEC had from 2013 to 2016 to 2024. But it can be a start of something. I mean, the Big Ten has all the momentum. They had the number one team in the regular season. They had the national championship team. Even on the bowl games, Michigan destroyed Alabama. Illinois beat South Carolina. So saw Big Ten teams with less record beating top level SEC teams. But I, I still need to see consistency from the Big Ten to really, start doubting that.
Oh, for sure. And I think the SEC is going to have something cooked up next year. I just have a feeling. But we have all off season. Spring games will be coming here in a few months, so I guess that's when we'll get back to it. But college football, pleasure doing business for another year. We'll see you in September with Mike Keith in hand in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I need to be there as we take on the Syracuse Orange. Speaking of the Vols, back over to the basketball court. Things are getting kind of interesting for our basketballs here. We have gotten into the heat of SEC play, and I feel like I was kind of warning about this heading into conference play. How don't be surprised if we start taking a couple of losses because of how good the league is, and it's starting to come true. Right now, the Vols are 4-4 in conference play after entering into conference play at 14-0. Or 17 or 13-0. They're right now 17-4 overall. And then the past week they have lost back-to-back games to Auburn on the road by 2 points, a game that they very much could have won. And then on Tuesday night at home against Kentucky, a shorthanded Kentucky team that was out their best two players. I am not concerned about Tennessee. I will say this, but I am wondering if what we're seeing right now is a confidence drought. Because it seems to me that the past two games, the Vols have beaten themselves. I think, especially on the offensive end, why are we taking so many free-point shots? We took 45 threes on Tuesday against Kentucky. There was no reason to do that. I get that shooting threes is the big thing with analytics and basketball. We are not the Golden State Warriors. We can't shoot the ball like that. Chaz Lanier, I think it's official. He's not Dalton Connect. Yeah, he's nowhere close to Dalton Connect. Like, yeah, he can get on a heater sometimes, but he's not Dalton. This team is going to have to be much more comprehensive and much more playing off of each other if they're going to make a deep run in March. And that's all that matters, right? Like, if they can put 4 good games in a row in March, that's all that matters. Truly. But, the team's going to have to play a little bit better than that. Better than they have the last 2 games, particularly on offense. Because especially at Auburn, the offense was awful. And the out-of-bounds plays at the end, like at Auburn, Barnes calls a timeout. We have 10 seconds left. We're only down 2. And Sakai takes it, gets the inbound, and just chucks it from 3. Like, come on, like, get a better shot than that. Or the other night, Gainey, we're down 3. We have 10 seconds left, and he's trying a fadeaway 3 from the corner. These are just been some poor shot selections in this game. Heat checks, just not making good mental decisions. And this team is better than that. I've seen them play better than that throughout the season. And I believe they're going to get it together. I truly believe we're going to beat Florida on Saturday. We're going to get a revenge game. We lost to them by 30 a couple of weeks ago. I think we'll get them in Knoxville. If we lose to Florida, I may start becoming concerned.
Yeah, I think, of course, as you point out perfectly, the SEC. What's funny, like literally, you ask in football about the SEC losing their edge, but in basketball, it's the opposite. Like you see a really good Auburn team, Kentucky first year without Coach Cal, really, you know, showing showing off. Even Arkansas, and I think Tennessee's going to do just fine. I don't think they're going to be out in March Madness. I think they're still pretty much on the track. But what I always talk about is hope is they kind of be in doubt right now in the regular season can be a thing of a different postseason.
Yeah, and that's the way we've thought about in college basketball, and that's the way we're probably going to start thinking about in college football moving forward as well at some point. But you got a lot more room of error in college basketball. So huge game Saturday at home at noon against Florida. I really hope we can get a win here because this team really could use one. But even if they win, remember last Tuesday, they beat Mississippi State. They would be 2-2 against 4 top 15 opponents, and I can't be mad at that. If you're 2-2 against 4 top 15 games, I mean, they're playing basically Sweet 16, Elite 8 games every night right now, Gus. Like, I can't recall such a hard schedule.
That's the level that the Southeastern Conference is right now in basketball.
Exactly. So this is only making them better, but it is kind of painful. Jason Warwick is in the chat. Also, while we're talking about men's basketball, shout out to the Louisville Cardinals. We were talking about this the other night. They are right now ranked number 21. They beat Wake Forest by 30 the other night. They are absolutely killing it. 100% a tournament team. Remember, the last 2 years before the 2 years before this year, they only won, I believe, like 10 total games. And Pat Kelsey has completely blown that out of the water this year. So, I mean, frankly, at this point, he should be probably the coach of the year for what he has done with Louisville and making them actually a product that diehards like Jason. Yeah, Jason. So the previous coach went 12-59. So Pat Kelsey has surpassed that. And Pat Kelsey really probably should be coach of the year for making a proud program, something that diehards like Jason and all the other alums of Louisville that I know proud of again. So shout out to the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, what a comeback.
Absolutely. Speaking of proud programs, we got the Lady Vols on the other side. And the Lady Vols they're an enigma right now because it's not that they're playing bad. It's that they can't win close games. They have lost 4 games so far in conference play by less than 2 points. And then the other night they lost to South Carolina at home by a considerable margin. So right now they have 5 conference losses. But I still think there's still a lot of promise for Kim Caldwell, which, by the way, congratulations to her and her husband. They have a new baby. She gave birth last week, right before the Texas game, and was right back on the sidelines on Monday, which is insane.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it shows her determination. I mean, man, because I know that cannot be an easy decision for her. So I hope she's still going to spend time for as much time as she can with her newborn. But obviously, I know I know for coaches, she has other kids too, and those kids are her players. So I know she wants to be with them as well. especially as they go through conference play. Um, yeah, but Lay Vols, it's just, can they find a closer at some point this year? So Jason has this. Um, so he said, quote, the Lay Vols are overachieving subpar talent. Relatively speaking, Coach Kim has breathed life into this program. Imagine what she can do with players she recruits, but don't call these players her players. And that's fair because she has 2 5-stars coming in next year. So I think you're going to see a major jump up next year. Um, the ceiling this year is probably Sweet 16 for this team, but clearly the groundwork's being laid there. It's just frustrating to me because like they could only have one loss right now. I mean, they've been so close against several top level teams like
and
Oklahoma and LSU and Texas.
and maybe that's what this talent that is coming in gonna make a difference. That close that gap.
Yeah. Um, So things are they will start winning those close games eventually. I would love to see them win some of those this year. That would be awesome. Speaking of women's basketball in Tennessee, though, came out today that there is a new WNBA team that may be on the way to Nashville, and that it may be called the Nashville Summit. Apparently, it's an ownership group with Peyton Manning and Candace Parker, of Vols fame. They would play in the Predators Arena, the Bridgestone Arena, and it would be called
So
the Nashville Summit.
why not in Knoxville? Knoxville Summit. I mean, if Connecticut has WNBA franchise heavily because of how the Huskies are so good in women's basketball, why Knoxville the same?
Well, okay, so I think you got to think about where the WNBA is right now. So they have the biggest talent they've ever had in Caitlin Clark. Like she has elevated their league to a new level in terms of popularity, in terms of visibility. So if your WNBA right now is the perfect time to begin expansion, and you want to you got to go for cities that have a visibility. Unfortunately, as much as we love Knoxville, Nashville is a global city at this point. Nashville is the most visible city in Tennessee. Of course, Jason, saying that this is the only way he can support national sports. Go Fever forever and always, but I'll be happy for them. And I want the Indiana Fever to be really, really good with Caitlin Clark, and obviously a lot of new fans. Of the
Oh,
WNBA
that
are rooting
that
for
makes
Indiana.
that makes sense. That's it. Make a whole more sense.
And plus, it would. I just think logistically, it'd be kind of hard to pull it off in Knoxville. You know, although the WNBA season is during the summer, so you could pull it off. But imagine if you had playoff games in like September in Knoxville going up against football games. It just logistically, Nashville can handle that better than Knoxville can. And Nashville's just a bigger market. And the WNBA is probably thinking about putting all-star games there. And, obviously when you have a star like Caitlin Clark, you can market her better in a place like Nashville than in a place like Knoxville. So it's just, um,
Yeah, I guess
those are
that's
the type of things. Yeah. So I'm not saying you're necessarily wrong because Knoxville is the heartbeat, but Nashville is close enough. And I would 100% adopt them as my WNBA team if this comes to fruition, because that's just an awesome, awesome tribute. Alrighty. Quick. So the NBA All Stars have come out tonight. And of course, the NBA All Stars, the All Star game is a joke. But it's still interesting to see who the starters are. So for the East, we've got Jalen Brunson of the Knicks, Donovan Mitchell of the Cavs, Jason Tatum of the Celtics, Giannis with the Bucks, and Karl Anthony Towns of the Knicks. What do you think of that starting lineup?
interesting. The Knicks are really getting stars back, but to be honest, I don't engage as much in the NBA to really have a full opinion on it.
Yeah, and of course the West is Curry, Shy Guy, just Alexander, LeBron, KD, and Jokic. So it feels like, and Jason, not a fan of the Knicks. Of course, the Pacers own the Knicks, at least right now. We'll see if there's a rematch coming in these playoffs. But like, I actually have the Rockets and Grizzlies on right now. The Rockets are up at halftime, but I mean, yeah, I haven't watched that much either. A lot of people don't watch NBA anymore, apparently. So, but hey, those are the starting lineups. No one's going to watch the championship. Apparently, there's a rumor that they may put Bronny on the Western Conference just so he gets to play with LeBron in the All-Star game, which is just such a gimmick. I mean, he literally can't stay on an NBA roster.
Like, come on, really, Adam Silver? Really? I mean, at some point.
Also, I'll say this: why is Victor Wembanyama should be starting over KD in the Western Conference? Victor Wembanyama arguably is the single most talented player in the league right now.
Oh yeah, it's just disappointing.
Yeah, so I know KD, obviously he's one of the greatest players of all time. Wemby should start over him. And that might be that's maybe a hot take. I think Wemby should be starting over KD. And did we see the James Johnson appearance? I did not, Jason. See what James Johnson did. Let's see, what did he do? I'm looking it up now. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see that. Also, but in a funny news, because like as we all know, the NBA is funnier off the court than it is on the court. Jimmy Butler earlier this week was suspended from the Miami Heat for walking out of practice because he's been wanting to get traded, and apparently the Miami Heat have just had enough of his antics. So, Butler is on the trade market. We don't know where he's going to go, but man, it's just hilarious that the NBA, like the only way they can get relevant headlines is people doing stupid stuff like that. I mean, literally walking out of practice. Like if we walked out of our workplaces, we'd get fired. But Jimmy Butler just gets suspended. And that's the type of crap that drives people away from the league.
And that's the kind of thing you don't heard of in the NFL. Of course, there's plays they're sit out, but I don't consider that like because when you sit out, it's just contract negotiation. It's just hey, I'm not gonna play because I want to negotiate a contract. So at least I'm being full front and be like, hey, I'm not. My mind is not here. Let's figure out that. But that was a foolish, childish act that you don't see in the NFL.
Well, I mean, Antonio Brown.
Oh, no. Antonio Brown is in another. No, no. Antonio Brown should not be used of any comparison because he is in another. No,
he's in another universe.
Yes. Like outside of him, you don't see other NFL players doing crap like that.
That's very fair. Yeah, so I'll be curious to see where he gets traded to. Of course, trade deadline is coming up soon. The very last thing I want to bring up on the American side of sports, it is racing time again. NASCAR is back this weekend with the Clash, and they're going to historic Bowman Gray Stadium. This is a tiny quarter-mile short track that's inside a football stadium. Imagine like the average high school football stadium, like Finley Stadium. Like think about Finley Stadium if you put a racetrack inside of it. This is Bowman Gray Stadium in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and that's where NASCAR is going to be racing on Sunday night.
But let me ask you, I thought Daytona was the first race of the year.
Okay, this is an exhibition race.
Oh,
so
okay.
This race doesn't count for points.
Oh,
the Daytona 500's in 2 weeks. Yeah.
So the opener is still in Daytona.
Yes, but this is like the preseason race.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you want to think about it like that.
No, that was a good disclaimer because I thought, okay, as far as I remember, they always open the NASCAR season in Daytona after the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And in terms of who I think going to win, I'm picking Joey Logano, defending champion. He's good at those short, flat tracks. I'm going to take him. All right, Gus, tell me all about Rio Branco. What's been going on in the land of Americana?
But before Rio Branco, we're going to have to talk about the biggest news in the Brazilian soccer God, how long now? Because now it's 100% official. Neymar Jr. is back at Santos Football Club. He is the team that he started all back in 2009, and he stayed there for 5 years from 2009, 4 years actually, 2009 to 2013. Of course, that was the stretch that he went pro. He of course he played for Santos and he was in the under 20, under 17, but he stayed 4 years in Santos as a pro from 2009 from 2009 to 2013. Then he left for Barcelona, then PSG, then Al Hilal. So he is back at his youth team. That he's not doing so well, by the way. No, I watched Santos live on Saturday in Rio Claro, a city was like an hour from here, and that was a really bad performance. Really bad. It feels like a lost team. Of course, they have a new coach, the Portuguese coach Pedro Caixinha, former coach of Red Bull Bragantino. He's still trying to find an identity of the team. I feel the team doesn't have an identity, but of course, all this changes when a superstar Neymar comes back. Of course, he in the last 2 seasons he only played 8 games because he had a lot of injuries during his time at Al Hilal. Um, he so what he did was he of course he they broke up the contract 6 months before it expired. So Neymar kind of left out of the table like $400 million. So he didn't want to get that money. He wanted to come back to Santos, play at a team that he started all. I think to get back to his confidence because we are like what a year and a half away from the World Cup, so he needs to get his confidence back, play in front of adoring fans to get his juice back because Brazil definitely needs him to be at his best in the 2026 World Cup.
And it's kind of disappointing that he's not coming to America of MLS to
Oh, he
go
will.
up
Oh, he
against.
will. Oh, he will. After the World Cup. After the World Cup, I'm 100% sure he is going to play in America. I don't know if it's going to be for Miami, New England, Chicago, but he's going to America. That's something I can vouch for. He just knows that he cannot go right now. For example, like Messi. Messi only went to the MLS after the 2022 World Cup because he knew that was his last good, that was probably the last World Cup that he was going to be on it. So he needs to be his best. And then he won the World Cup, then he went to America. So Neymar knows
So,
that he needs
so
to be at least in a competitive league like the Brazilian league to be at his best for the World Cup come in a year and a half. And
so
uh,
Jason says Gustavo is better.
Estevam, I mean, he is not playing for Palmeiras right now regularly. But of course, when he's not on the field, Palmeiras, is a whole different team. For example, they lost to Novo Horizontino 2-1, losing a 42 invincibility streak in the regular season in the Paulista Championship. So he's definitely. I hope Estevam gets a really good season in Chelsea because it'll be a really great add-on for the Brazilian roster in the 2026 World Cup. And Neymar to in the 11, I'm not sure. I don't know if in the 11 might afford him to be. I'm not saying in the 11 doesn't have financial resources. Just Neymar probably is gonna go. I mean, I think they're gonna do Messi, Suarez, and Neymar at in the 11. You just know that he's gonna go to Miami. They're gonna do the trio that probably one of the best soccer trios ever because they like to play. I feel like Messi, Neymar, and Suarez they blew it a chance to be one of the biggest dynasties in sports because all the greediness of Neymar. I think that was gonna be a. I mean, no, you can say we don't have financial resources. I mean, uh, yeah, but I want to say like in the 11 can hire good players. Just Neymar probably gonna go to a team that can pay millions because he knows that he's worth a lot of money, even though a lot of that money has to be spent on alimony and friends and whatever. You
So,
know,
like, how many ex-wives does Neymar have? In case he has to take care of.
funny enough, none because he got married right now, so he did. But he has two kids out of wedlock.
Oh boy. See, kids,
What
this is why you don't do that.
no, and one of those kids, he got the girl pregnant while his wife was pregnant.
Um, I've never. Wow.
Yeah, Neymar is
Uh,
a whole other level, and he's still married to this woman,
wow. Like
and
the
they had
woman
a,
that was already pregnant, or the one she got
yeah,
pregnant.
yeah, yeah, the one who
Why?
was already,
Well, I mean, he's very wealthy, but
yeah.
that has to that has to be the reason. I mean, my God. Um,
And they had another
wow.
kid after that one.
Wow, that's okay. I'm gonna move on before I say something that could get myself into trouble on that one.
Yeah, that's fair
Um,
enough. Let's talk about
yeah,
real
but
talk.
yeah, let's do real. Yeah, but I guess to ask like seriously that like for 2026 for Brazil's hopes in 2026, like how much are they going to need from Neymar? When you look at a guy like Vinicius Jr., look at some of the other younger talent that Brazil has. How much do they really need Neymar to
Oh, a
win?
lot, a lot. I see Neymar as, for example, like Ronaldo was in 2002. Ronaldo was the best Brazilian soccer player. Dealt with a lot of injuries 2 years before the World Cup. A lot of people doubted he was going to be in the high level. He was already in his 30s, like Neymar. Li- And when you have a star like that, you know that you have someone that you can pass the ball to when you are in the dire situation. You know that you have someone that can really make a difference. And Brazil needs playmakers because Vini Jr., Rodrigo, Paqueta are really good players on an organized system. And Brazil doesn't have that because you cannot because you don't have time for training. Like you need a guy that can make a difference, on an individual kind of talent.
Yeah, it's gonna be really fun next year for sure to see what they can do.
Yeah,
But let's
like Jason brought it up perfectly. Like he's gonna be the leader. Yeah, I still feel like he's gonna be one of the biggest pitch contributor. I think he can make plays. It's just his leadership right now is more important because Brazil right now lacks a lot of leadership. Unfortunately, Vinny Jr. doesn't have that type of leadership. Neither does Rodrigo, Paqueta. Neymar needs to come back to be the forefront of the Brazil national team.
very interesting. It's I never really thought about that, but because that's one of my complaints to the U.S. in terms of their tactics. But how much do they really have to be together to have tactics? But like I feel like a team like Germany always seems to have a lot of really tight knit
I mean,
tactics.
it's just because European national teams, a majority of those players play with each other. They play on the same team, and they're constantly being called. So they kind of are more in sync than, for example, Brazil and US, when you have players playing from all different leagues, with different styles. So I think there's a little bit of difference, but of course, that's why you need, for example, US needs Pulisic and Brazil needs Neymar.
Yeah, I don't think Pulisic is anywhere close to Neymar, at least in my opinion.
No, I'm not saying both have equal talented, but both have equal needy to be on their
Yeah.
respectful, like like Neymar. Brazil needs Neymar like US needs Pulisic.
Yes, Jason and I were talking about this the other night about because I asked him because we were talking about soccer because I was playing there's a free to play game on the PS5 called UFL. It's a soccer game, and I was asking him, what do you think is um, the ceiling for the U.S. next year in the 26 World Cup? And he had told me, Jason, obviously, if you're still in the comments, chime in here, but his view, he thinks this team can make the semifinals with the right draw. Um,
Yeah, it would have to be a really good draw. Like US would have to go in like 2002 South Korea run, a draw, referee, and kind of momentum going. And I don't know, like it would have to all the combinations met.
yeah, and obviously I'm not the soccer guy here, but that would be just an incredible run. if that were to occur, and hopefully being at home next year with the patriotism. Jason says quarterfinal should be the expectation. Semifinal is a good goal.
Yeah,
Um,
but like I said, it would have there would have to be like a 2002 South Korea run because like a darling kind of and because if you look at it, South Korea in 2002, I mean the fans were behind it, but they had a lot of controversial calls going their way against Italy, against Spain. I'm not saying the U.S. doesn't have players that can make the difference and carry this team to the semifinals. It's just I don't see that right now comparing to Argentina, to France, Brazil, uh, Italy,
yeah.
England.
Well, I mean, it's just that next year to me is judgment. It's the judgment day
Yeah,
for U.S. soccer. Either we put up or we shut up. And if we don't show up next year and play well, then I think you're going to see this country um, kind of lose interest in the sport.
yeah. And
So
Jason said this is the best group of players ever in US. That's fair. It's a golden generation compared to 1994, where they were, still developing a really good pro league after the NSL experiment in the 80s fell apart. And that's fair. Real management. Mauricio Pochettino is a manager with European experience. So with the Argentinian school that has been successful with you know Carl, Carl oh my god, Bielsa, Sampaoli, and and quarterfinal appearance is a must. Yeah, of course, for the popularity is a must, but I'm analyzing kind of compared to like a strength of roster. That's what I'm kind of. But of course, there's playing at their home soil and not having the fan with their side as well.
right, because I'm definitely looking at this more from just pure as an American. What the energy that I see or the lack thereof, because I've complained about how I feel like there's a lack of energy around our men's national soccer team,
Eh,
and next year is a year where that can change. But this team has to go out there and be the ones to make the change.
And what's funny, Nick? I know, of course, it's different because it's uh, you know, U.S. doesn't have a lot of popularity in their league, MLS, and teams. But for me, the World Cup will be pay attention probably a little bit more. Is this the one this year, the FIFA Club World Cup in the United States? I'm really curious to see how Brazilian teams are going to do it. I know the big question is how the European teams are going to show up. Real Madrid, Chelsea, Man City. I think it's funny. Like the British teams, and I know if Jason Warwick's on the chat, and I want to see his opinion on that. The British teams, I don't know if they're going to go with the reserve squad because Chelsea and Man City might look at this FIFA Club World Cup tournament and be like, we can save our season because let's be honest, neither Chelsea or Man City are going to compete for the Premier League or even Champions League. So this FIFA Club World Cup can really save Chelsea or Man City's season, and they might rethink about going with their youth or their reserves. They might go with their full squad, and I don't know how the Brazilian teams are going to match up with that. And looking at right now, Palmeiras, they're not on their best. Abel Ferreira not knowing he's going to stay for another season. Fluminense right now also trying to recover from a really bad season, almost being relegated. Botafogo, trying to you know recuperate after their coach left, some stars left. Um, uh, Flamengo. I think Flamengo can be right now the more stable one. Incredibly, Flamengo, which how they're unstable can be. Now they're stable, with the young coach that looks promising. Not Gabigol left, so no more controversies. And Jason said, Club World Cup is going to be the only trophy either wins. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah. So it might be a strong showing. That's the point that I was making, Jason. Yeah, the FIFA Club World Cup might be the only trophy that Man City or Chelsea wins. So they might go all in to save their season. And definitely Jason would be one of them because his supporters at Chelsea would be, yeah, definitely Jason wants the A team so he can watch in US coming in July. I wish I could be there. Maybe I'll try to go, but definitely that's the World Cup I'm definitely going to be paying attention to this year. I don't know why, but you're muted, or maybe it's me. Go ahead.
But there I am,
Yeah,
I
you're back.
think.
You're back. You're back. You're back.
Yes. Yes, I definitely got to find a way to make some matches.
Oh yeah, I think it'll be. And last but not least, my beloved Rio Branco. And I mean, we owned the city of Jaú. Jaú is Rio Branco's bitch. Not only last year, we went on their stadium, ruined their party, and got promoted yesterday on their first game on their stadium on a new division because remember they got promoted not on the field, they got promoted because the team that was on this A3, the Red Bull second team, got dissolved. There's no more Red Bull Bragantino second. They got dissolved, so that's why because of this technicality they got promoted. But Rio Branco remind them, okay, you guys got promoted on what we call a canetado. They got promoted on an office decision. We got promoted on a field, and yesterday was a perfect reminder of that because Rio Branco came to Jaú and annihilated de Jaú again. 2-0. You watch a little bit of the game, Nick. Rio Branco dominated the game.
Yeah, just based on your descriptions of the game, and I've honestly I've been struggling finding the video versions of it, so I've just been like following the notifications in the group chat.
I mean, I guess that's fair. A lot of people in US, like for example, the son of Rio Broncos soccer director that is in US, came to me as well, like saying that he's also maybe the Police Federation put on their biggest YouTube channel that probably had a setup that they are not allowing US viewers to watch the channel because they before that they used to broadcast the first division. The first division has broadcast rights internationally because they have Corinthians, Palmeiras, São Paulo, Santos. So maybe what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make a call for the head of the communications of the police federations tomorrow and ask them about that because that doesn't make any sense that in the lower divisions they would have geo block. It wouldn't make any sense. But I'll make a
Yeah,
call.
because like there's no way Rio Branco has international rights.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I've not been able to really watch it again. I've just been kind of hearing about it, following it through you,
I,
following it through the streams and stuff.
I I mean, that's a great question. I'm gonna make a call because I have a really good line of communication with the people that runs the communications department of the Police Federation, and I kind of, I mean, in the first game there were some glints of that, but you never told me about it. But now it really makes sense. I feel like I'm gonna have to, talk about that and see what the hell's going on because
Yeah.
when it was in the other YouTube channel, the Futebol Paulista YouTube channel, you were able to watch. There was
Oh
no
yeah,
problem
yeah.
at
I
all.
watched several games last year now. So basically, so I really have no comment right now on how the team's playing. I just know they are starting off very well. But it was like 3 wins and a draw so far.
2 wins and 2 draws. 2 wins and 2 draws. Yeah, so that's what we're talking about. Stream the games on YouTube. That's the problem. The games are on YouTube, but I'm trying to find out is and I bet that happened. Someone put a geo block on this YouTube channel they're using right now, which was the main one, the Postal Federation, because they used to broadcast the first division, which has the rights because they have Corinthians, Palmeiras, São Paulo, and Santos. So there was geo block. But I bet if I make a call tomorrow and be like, "Hey, Luis, what's up with you know YouTube channel, for the second, third, and fourth division in the state of São Paulo? Is there anything?" And they're gonna be, "Oh, I bet I'm gonna go to the bottom of this. I'm
Yes,
gonna go to the
please.
bottom of this.
Because
I'm gonna
otherwise,
go.
well, I guess I could always get a VPN. But I guess from what you're seeing, what are you seeing so far for the first four matches for Rio Bronco? Like what is this team doing this year that is better than last year, worse than last year? And how are they able to get off to such a strong start in a tyrant? I mean, they're already up to 8 points in four matches.
I mean, first of all, they have the better roster. Overall, the better roster. They were able to play with the B team, with a lot of reserves on the road, and got a tie and even a chance to win. So I'm fully convinced Rio Bronco is going to be in the playoffs. I'm no doubt in my mind Rio Bronco Rio Bronco's going to make the playoffs. The question is this team, this roster, are good enough to advance in the playoffs? Because regular season one thing, playoffs is another. Rubranco last year have a shaky regular season, ups and downs, lost in the derby, a very chaotic game. Had really troubling games. But when it comes to the playoffs, they made the good hires, especially with two great players, Dave Gilazari and Rafael Lopez and Vagninho, to be honest, and then made a whole difference, and they were able to win it all. So I'm wondering, if the playoff version is going to be the same as regular season version, and I'm only going to find out after March because that's when the regular season ends. But I think, and what's funny is that I, when you go to a new division, your goal should be not to be relegated. To be like, okay, it's our first year at A3 after 7 years. Let's not get relegated. Kind of stabilize it. But Rio Branco's going ahead. Rio Branco are gonna fight for a playoff spot. They're very far away from fighting relegation. They are really on the top. I mean, they're gonna have a really tough game on the road again. So I mean, this week I travel Tuesday and I'm traveling tomorrow. So
Hmm.
I'm traveling this week, and but it's going to be a tough game against Sertãozinho, a very traditional team, and hopefully Rebron can get a win and move on up to at least second, maybe first place. But it's going to be a tough battle out in Sertãozinho. I mean, a tie is not bad because at least you keep G8 opponent, behind you, and you're playing on the road. But I mean, I think this team is the way they perform on Wednesday. I mean, Casey Dijon did not have a single goal shot on target, not a single one.
Hmm.
Rio Branco goalkeeper did not make a single save. Like
Wow.
all kicks went, over the bar or out. Rio Branco and the fans at the end, that chant, "Ole, ole!" when you start passing the ball at the end. I, like the 15 João fans were calling Ole when Rio Branco players were making passes. So they were mocking their own team. They were mocking their own team.
Wow, that's bad. They sound like they're getting relegated.
Oh, I mean, I told the 15 de Jaú media, you guys should really fight to not be relegated. And that's what happens when you get promoted on a technical decision, not on the field. Because the fans, even though it was the first game at home in a newer division that they fought so much to be on it, they didn't really feel engaged. They didn't really feel excited to be there. It's like uh, you went up to a division, but the fans mentality, the fan spirit are still in the A4. That's what I felt when I went there yesterday.
Yeah, I can only imagine why.
Yeah.
I love Jason. We lose every week. We lose every week. You're nothing special. We lose every week. Because
Yeah.
isn't this a team that does the whole chicken thing, right? Like the
Yeah, yeah,
yes,
that
yeah.
one. Yeah, that one. Literally that one. The chicken. I mean, now I mean, chicken is a symbol of like when you choked. So and we called Jaú our second house, and King Jaú our bitch because not only they lost. I mean, they had everything prepared. They have a fire truck parade party, everything was lined up for the celebration that did not happen because Rio Bronco, got the promotion. And yesterday they had everything prepared for a party. for coming back to the third division on a technicality, and Rio Branco reminded you guys got up because of technicality. We got up because we deserve to be here on the field. That was a great reminder.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, vamos Tigre.
Yeah, and also shout out to Americana celebrating 150 years this year in August. I went to an event promoted by the city, so my beloved Americana celebrating. Hopefully, Roberto can give a really good 150-year anniversary present, and I mean a title maybe is a little bit stretch, but I'll be happy with the promotion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fantastic start, fourth in the table right now. So gonna be a gonna be a fun season. Hopefully, we can figure out a way to get some these games on the screen.
I'll make some calls tomorrow to solve that. I'll make
Yeah,
some calls.
and if that all fails, I'll figure out a VPN. So
Okay, sounds good. Vamos, Trigue.
vamos Chile, and that's all the time we have here for the last two countries to America's All Sports of January 2025. I just realized we still have 20. Well, at least on the StreamYard link that I'm seeing, but I see on the screen is 2025. But for Gus
Yeah.
Tomazeli and Americana Sao Paulo, Brazil, I'm Nick Killen, Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.